Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the Nottingham Festival of Science and Curiosity. Great to have you join us for this morning's session of Ask the Scientist Q&A session, all about science careers and opportunities within the whole wide world of STEM. Science, technology, engineering and maths. And a very warm welcome if you're joining us on YouTube to watch this broadcast. My name is Rick Hall, and in a moment I'll introduce our panel and then we'll get into the presentations this morning. We have a very varied range of jobs and experience on show today. And hopefully you'll be stimulated by asking some questions. A reminder that you can post your questions on the YouTube comments facility on the panel there on the YouTube. Post your questions there, and they'll come through to us here in the virtual studio of the Festival of Science and Curiosity. Let me briefly ask our panel just to say hello and introduce themselves. I first of all hand over to Federico, Dr. Federico Peratta.
Hi everyone, Federico here. I'm a consultant in AECOM in engineering.
And now passing over to Dr. Janine Swarbrick.
That's fine. Hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Janine, and I currently work as a patent attorney, helping people to protect their inventions. And before that, I was a research physicist.
Feedback on the panel. Could I ask you to mute yourself when you're not speaking? Thanks, Holly. I think it was coming from yours. So I'm handing over now to Dr. Rebecca Dewey. Good morning, Rebecca.
Hi there. My name's Rebecca. I work at the University of Nottingham as a research scientist, and at the moment I'm working from home in Nottingham City Centre.
Thank you, Rebecca. And finally, Dr. Holly Campbell. Good morning, Holly.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Holly, and I'm an experimental materials scientist at the UK Atomic Energy Authority.
I think that must be the atoms all working away in the background there, Holly, that are perhaps creating a little bit of feedback. And then just also to introduce Isabella. Isabella, give us a wave. Isabella is our tech support for today. So, as I said, a very warm welcome to all our guests and a very warm welcome to our viewers, and a special warm welcome if you're from our schools in Gedling who are joining us for our Build Your Future week as part of Apprenticeship Week. So the idea behind the Ask a Scientist is really to find out about what kind of jobs are available if you wish to pursue an interest in science, technology, engineering and maths. Where could those subjects lead you? What kinds of opportunities and experiences and job satisfaction can you find if you take those subjects further? And so what we'll be asking our panel to do is to say a little bit about their jobs, how they came to be in the roles that they're running at the moment, what gives them job satisfaction and so on. But of course, we want this to be an interactive session. We're looking for your questions to put to the panel. So find out so that you can find out more about what opportunities might be there for you in the future. Okay, so I'm going to go round in reverse order and start with Dr. Holly Campbell and invite you, Holly, just to say a little bit about your career journey and the work that you do now for the UK Atomic Energy Authority. Holly, over to you.
Right, hello. Yes, so as Rick said, I work at the UK Atomic Energy Authority. The goal of the authority is to harness the process which powers the sun, nuclear fusion, to provide sustainable carbon neutral energy. We do that here on Earth by building huge machines, artificial suns, called tokamaks. And that's where I come in. A tokamak is pretty much a huge donut composed of magnets, rings that go around the inside of the ring, around the outside. These magnets are used to heat up the nuclear fusion fuel, control the plasma, and sustain it. My job title is experimental material scientist. I performance test these very powerful magnets by doing lots of experiments. We will irradiate these materials with gamma rays, neutrons, protons, and then see how their functional properties will change. My career path started about 10 years or so ago now. I did an undergrad in chemistry, and over the years became very interested in materials. Materials chemistry, you could also call it solid state chemistry. I began working on photoactive materials, magnetic materials, and then, yes, eventually did a PhD on superconductors. Full circle, here I am applying my love for superconductors to a very noble cause. If we were able to achieve fusion and provide electrical power to the grid using it, it would solve the energy crisis, and it would also help deal with the climate crisis we're currently experiencing. I think that's all from me for just now.
Great. Thanks, Holly. I mean, I've already got loads of questions for you, and I'm sure our audience will as well, about, what nuclear fusion fuels are. I've got questions I will, I'll invite you to talk about later around the dangers of dealing with nuclear material. When you mentioned gamma rays, my first thought was, aren't they terribly dangerous? But anyway, look, let's let our audience mull over what it means to be a materials scientist in the nuclear energy industry, and let them come back with some more questions about that. I'm going to hand over to Rebecca, Dr. Rebecca Dewey, to tell us a little bit about your work and the research that you're doing. Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you. Well, I'm already spotting a theme here, donuts and magnets, because I do a lot with donuts and magnets as well. I work with MRI scanners. So an MRI scanner is a big donut-shaped magnet, and we use that to study inside the human body. So we use radio frequency coils together with that static magnetic field provided by the donut-shaped magnet. And we use that to excite the particles in your body in a way that's entirely harmless. It's no worse for you than the mobile phone that you're carrying in your pocket all the time. These are radio frequency waves that are around everywhere. And we can do very specific little measurements to find out what the atoms and molecules are inside your body, and use that to reconstruct 3D pictures, slices through your body. And we can do that in lots of different ways. So one of the really exciting things about MRI is it's not just like taking a photograph, or even like the most boring, like maybe a black and white photograph that you get with X-ray. MRI is really, really versatile. You can put all your Instagram filters on it. You can get all different bits of measures out of the human body. So you can find out where all the water is, where all the fat is, where all the blood is, where all the muscle is. And you can ask the scanner to take different kinds of pictures with different kinds of contrast, depending on what you're trying to investigate in the body. And that's really exciting. And we can also vary how specific we are at asking different kinds of questions. So we can either take a very long, slow picture, a long exposure, which has very, very tiny pixels, so it's high resolution and you get a lot of detail, Or we can tell the scanner, don't worry about detail, just take really fast pictures. And you can take a picture every second or every half a second for like 4 minutes and see processes happening in the brain, see the blood flowing into cells in the brain, see the oxygen getting used up by cells in the brain. So it's such a versatile piece of equipment. I'll then tell you a little bit about myself. So from when I guess I was about 8 or 10, I started watching things like the Royal Institution Christmas lectures on telly. And I just went, oh, this scientist thing, this sounds really cool. I'm just really nosy. I want to know everything. I want to understand everything. I want to be the first to find stuff out, find out all the new information. And so I knew from that moment I wanted to be a scientist, but I kept changing in my mind what sort of scientist I wanted to be. I wanted to go into pharmacy and discover new drugs to cure diseases. I wanted to be a space scientist and find out what's at the edge of the universe. I wanted to be a particle physicist and find out what happened in the first 2 seconds after the Big Bang. I wanted to do all of it. And then, so I went to university. Obviously, I went to University of Manchester and I did a degree in physics, which I loved because there's just so much physics there. And then actually I learned that I can use science, I can use physics, the thing I really enjoy and that I was quite good at, to help people and to help make medicine better. So then I went on and did a PhD in MRI, trying to improve the sensitivity of methods that we use to measure brain activity and to measure tiny changes in brain activity that we can cause by maybe giving a drug or that happen over time when somebody has a disease gets worse. How does their brain activity change? How does their body respond to it? So that's what I do day to day. I use the MRI scanners and try and improve the way that we measure really, really tiny changes that happen in the brain over time. And then one of the main applications I use that for is what we call auditory neuroscience. So auditory being hearing, everything to do with ears, neuroscience being the brain, neurons, anything that's going on in your head. So how do your ears communicate with your brain? That's my main area of research. Thank you.
Rebecca, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for that introduction. I mean, again, I've already got loads of questions for you, but I'm going to, just before we move on to Janine and Federico, I'm going to ask Holly if she will just quickly address a question that's come in on the YouTube comment channel. And it's come from Mohammed, and he's asking, how old is the nuclear energy department? Is it a relatively new thing, or has it been around for a long time? So, Holly, how long has the nuclear energy, well, not just the department, but how long has the nuclear energy industry been around?
Well, I couldn't give you the exact date, but early fusion experiments were done in Cambridge. Don't quote me. You can look up in Wikipedia, like the Zeta experiments and pinch experiments. I would estimate like early 1900s, 1930s, and then the primary tokamak experiment, the Joint European Torus at UK on site in Column, which is in Oxfordshire. I'm pretty sure that's been since the 70s. Yeah.
Mohammed?
If you want context, I work on the STEP program. It's Spherical Tokamak for Energy Production, and the aim of that program is to have a prototype fusion reactor to provide power to the grid by 2040.
Wow.
So it's been around for a long time, but we're finally getting to the point where we would actually be providing electrical power to your homes in the next 20, 30 years or so. Yeah, and if you want more information on that, you could look up the massive international effort, ITER. It's the International Thermonuclear Reactor. It's in the south of France. There, so many countries are involved in that, and it will lead on to various other projects, demo. Yeah, there's a lot going on. You do a quick Google search.
Thanks, Holly. Well, we'll come back to, I'm sure we'll come back to further questions about the future of the nuclear energy industry. But now I'm delighted to invite Dr. Janine Swarbrick to introduce herself and her work. Janine, over to you, please. Janine, we can't hear you. I think you're.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I just said my bar's been set very high, not least because I can't work a mute button. So my name is Janine. My current job is as a patent attorney, and I've been doing that for about 10 years now. So everyone who is a patent attorney has a background in science, which I can tell you a little bit about my background later. And once you have that background in science, you train to sit the professional exams to qualify as a patent attorney. And a patent attorney's job is to help inventors protect their inventions and stop other people copying their ideas. So I speak to inventors in all fields of physics, really. I work in the automotives industry with mobile phones, laptops, computer networks, cybersecurity, blockchain, any of the sort of exciting, sort of up and coming electronics and computing innovations that we hear about in the news. So I work with inventors in those fields to help them protect their inventions and stop other people sort of copying their ideas and sort of taking their IP, we call it, their intellectual property. But before I was a patent attorney, I weirdly also worked with a large-scale facility called a synchrotron, which is another ring with lots of magnets around it. So I did my PhD and my degree in physics at the University of Nottingham. And my degree was in physics, my PhD was in nanoscience, which was studying the structures of molecules and how they stick to each other in certain patterns. So I was looking at that. And then after I finished my PhD, I moved to Grenoble in the south of France, near the Alps, which was lovely. And I worked at the ESRF, which is the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility. And I was a research physicist there for 4 years, using their synchrotron radiation, which is really like a super high power torch. So we send electrons around a ring. They're guided around the ring by very strong magnets. But the ring isn't quite a circle. It's lots of little straight sections. And every time an electron is forced to turn a corner to go around the ring, it releases a very, very bright beam of light with very specific properties. And physicists and scientists can use those properties to investigate their samples. So the beamline that I worked on, so the part of the ring that gave us our high power light, was used for lots of different experiments in geology, biology, chemistry, and physics and medicine. But my field was to study the structures of molecules and how they change. For example, if you put a molecule inside a nanotube, or if you put a molecule on a surface, and I studied lots of different sort of small molecules there. But after my research there, I decided that I wanted a change from working in the lab, and so that's why I retrained as a patent attorney. So 2 careers in one.
Thanks, Janine. Yes, I think one of the main topics really about these sessions is not just how you came to the job that you did, but how do people keep their options open and allow themselves really the opportunity to switch to another field of interest. And in fact, yes, things that are changing and developing very rapidly in our world. Well, thank you for that, Janine. Again, I know we've got a couple of questions already lined up for you, coming in on the comments and previously by email. But now I'd just like to invite Dr. Federico Peratta to talk to us and explain a little bit about your career, Federico, and the work that you do now.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Federico. I'm a consultant in engineering in AECOM. AECOM stands for Architecture, Engineering, Consultancy, Operation and Maintenance. I just discovered. Here we are. So this is exactly what we do. We provide consultancy in architecture, engineering, operation and maintenance to local and governmental authorities, but also private clients, about how to manage their assets, how to take informed decisions, which could be ranging from anywhere. Now that I mean, seeing the snow outside, it comes to my mind when is the best time to put salt on our roads to avoid the ice formation to ensure safety. This is something that is part of our daily job. I started my career in engineering in Italy, where I come from, at the University of Parma, and I got interested in the research field while having an internship at the University of Zurich at ETH. There I learned a lot about how different materials can be combined to produce durable asphalt material and durable roads. From there, thanks to my passion for technology and data science, I combined my skills in computer programming to develop a finite element model which could help estimating the life of the pavements as reinforced by carbon fibers. Given that pleasant experience, I decided then to move my degree to doctor. Doctor is not a medical doctor, but is a doctor of philosophy, so a doctor of a certain field. And I saw that here in Nottingham, the University of Nottingham, as one of the center of excellence for pavement engineering. And I combined my passion for technology and data with my background in civil engineering to understand a bit more how the fuel economy of road vehicles is impacted by the condition of the road surface. So does more potholes, more cracks on the road can induce worse or better fuel economy of road vehicles? That is actually the case, and this is what my PhD thesis talks about. Talking about magnets, I never had the pleasure of working with magnets, but I collect magnets from anywhere in the world I have been. And my PhD brought me attending many conferences anywhere in the world, from the United States to many countries in Europe. Never been the pleasure of being in Asia, but who knows, in the future I can collect some magnets from there as well. And that was it for me.
Federico, thank you very much. And who knew that Nottingham was a centre of excellence for pavement technology? I think some of us who wander out across our pavements across the city may wish that we had some of that technology applied in our day-to-day lives. But I think pavement technology is a great area for development. I've seen lots of ideas where people were trying to create a new source of energy by the number of people who walk on pavements, and that you can actually generate energy just by pedestrians, by foot power. So that's a great opportunity, I think, for the future. Now, we've had quite a number of people joining us since we started onto the YouTube channel. So just a reminder that you can ask your questions of our panel by putting them into the comments section on the YouTube, and we welcome your questions for any of our panelists, or indeed for all of them, if you wish. I'm going to start with you, Janine, because we've had a question come in from Alex, who is currently doing his advanced degree, his PhD. He's working in the medical field at the moment on hip replacements. But after his PhD and after his research, he's thinking that he would like to become a patent attorney. So what advice could you give him about how to move from his current area of research to take up a career in a patent attorney?
Okay, well, that's a good question. I think unless you are looking for a career as a patent attorney or someone has told you about it, people don't really think of it when they're thinking about their career options. So I think that's a really good question. As I said before, everyone who is a patent attorney has a background in science. So what I mean by that is they usually have a good degree in a scientific subject. And some people like me have gone on to do a PhD or even postdoctoral work. Some people have just done their first degree and then they move into training as a patent attorney. So you get people joining at all different stages of their sort of learning career. I would say that the best thing to do is to have a look at the different patent attorney firms that there are in the country. So I work for HGF, which are a European firm. They have a lot of bases in the UK, but we have offices in different European countries as well. But you have a look on the websites for all of the different firms and see if you can find a firm which you think really interests you. Perhaps if your background is in medical physics, you may find a firm that has a big department working on medical physics cases that'd be interesting. But all of the training to be a patent attorney is all done on the job. So you would apply to be a trainee patent attorney with a firm, and then if you're given the job, then it usually takes, I would say, around 3 to 4 years to pass the professional qualifications. Then you would be a chartered patent attorney, and you could carry on there. So I think the best thing to do is to have a look on the websites, have a look at the different firms that are there, and apply. I noticed in the question you've asked for some hints for how to apply. I think qualities for a successful patent attorney would be a passion for science, because you never know what inventions are going to land on your desk the next day. It changes all the time. Also, an attention to detail. So patent attorneys are well renowned for having a very, very fussy eye for detail. Every comma has to be in the right place, because ultimately the legal protection for your invention sort of hinges on exactly what you've said. Good time management, because you might be managing lots of different cases at the same time, but really a passion and an interest to learn more about the different inventions that are there.
Thanks, Janine. And just before you I was going to say, before you mute again, do you say patent or patent?
So I think if you're not in the patent attorney field, people say patent, but all of us say patent. I mean, yeah, you can say either patent, patent, potato, potato. We tend to say patent, but both are right.
And is it true that the tin can was invented many years before the tin opener, the can opener?
Oh goodness, that's put me on the spot, hasn't it? I don't know. I would have to get back to you on that. It sounds like the sort of thing that might happen.
Yeah. Well, now, thanks, Janine. One of the other points that our panelists have made this morning is actually what started them on their interest in a science or engineering career or study. I mean, Rebecca, you talked about when you were a very young child how curious you were, and that you wanted to know the answers to everything. And I think that's a great start for anybody who is interested in science. That's why we call our festival the Festival of Science and Curiosity. So I'm going to ask all of you in turn, what was it that first inspired you to take an interest in science? What was that moment when you were at your most curious and wanted to find out the answers to things? I'm going to go round in reverse order. So start with you, Federico. What was it that first inspired you to become a scientist?
Well, curiosity, I think, is the key skill that we require. It's not even a skill; it's something we develop in our childhood. I think my father brought me in, given his background in the construction industry, brought me having some passion for the construction, for engineering, and for the fact that we can help people by designing better buildings, designing better roads, safer roads, ensuring that everyone comes safe at home, makes us feeling good. And also, given that my father was working in the public sector, I felt he was trying to transmit me how the use of public funds in the right way is key. So as a consultant, I try to always optimize the funds that we are given to provide a better service, not just for the direct client, but also for society.
Well, that's interesting, Federico. So it was both your father's interest, but your own curiosity, but then also that passion or that motivation to try and do things better, to make things better. That's really interesting. Janine, what was the moment in your childhood that first inspired your curiosity?
I think again it was when I was very young. I was an only child, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and I always remember my granddad just letting me have a go at things. I remember when I was very young and he taught me how to wire a plug, and I just thought it was fascinating having a go with real tools and actually doing things hands-on and then seeing them work at the end. And I still get excited about it now. I think that's why I enjoyed my career as an experimental physicist, because I think just letting children play, letting children try new things, having their own ideas, learning when things don't work is just as important as learning when they do work. But I just remember as a kid learning just things like joining in with like painting if we were redecorating, and just practically doing things and working out the best way of doing things, what works and what doesn't. It was so satisfying at the end because you could see your end result and you think, I really did that. And then as I grew up, my grandparents used to get me things like home chemistry kits, and I used to love playing with those. I used to love learning lots of arts and crafts as well. And I think it's that same, as Federico said, that curiosity that makes you think, what happens if I mix these colours? Or what happens if I use this paint on this model, or things like that. So I think, I was just encouraged not to be scared to try things. And then that just carried on, because the sense of satisfaction that you get when you try something and it turns out well at the end is just unbeatable. And I think I've just carried that on. So it might not be me in the lab now, but when I hear about other people's inventions, I think I get infected by the inventor's passion for their subject and their excitement that they've discovered something new, and that spurs me on to do a really good job to help them protect their fantastic ideas. But yeah, curiosity I think really is key.
Brilliant. Thank you, Janine. I love that reference as well to getting your hands on some tools and just learning how to be practical and to make things and or take things apart, I think is great. I'm always very interested in the 4 questions around science. How is it made? How does it move? How does it work? And how does it change? And I think those 4 questions apply to everything from cells right the way through to the universe. And then, of course, what you also want to understand is why. Why does it work that way? Why is it that way? Keep your questions coming in the online on the YouTube comments channel, viewers. It'd be great to have some more. Rebecca, I know that you were talking about that whole range of questions that you were asking as a child, but what was perhaps the moment of curiosity that really set you off on this career that's led you towards a medical research career?
So I think I was starting to ask those questions so young that I don't remember it. It was before my memory starts, really. But I know that I've always thought of science as being a way that we can make improvements to our lives. And I remember watching a program called Tomorrow's World that was on television every week. And I see everybody else nodding as well. That there was the new technology, the new thing that's going to come into your home, the new kind of dishwasher, the new kind of microwave, lots of medical equipment, that sort of thing. My mum was a nurse for her whole career before she retired, and we used to watch things like Casualty on Saturday nights on telly. And Mum would say, "Oh, we never used to have those in the ward, and that's really fancy new technology." And I think it was making that link between, hang on, who turns old technology into new technology? This sounds really cool. How do I look at that and go, well, that's all right, but I can make it better. And I think that motivated me. Whatever I ended up wanting to do that in, whether it was making medicines or now in medical physics, I think that really spurred me on.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Yes, memories of tomorrow's world and other things that you see on television that might inspire you. Holly, you're the last in the line, but what was the moment again as a child that sparked your curiosity?
Well, as everyone else has said, at an early point, I was so fascinated with the world around me. I wanted to know how everything worked, from lightning in the sky to like, why is the sky blue, all of that, rainbows, all that kind of stuff. But when I got a bit older, my close aunt had cancer, and I wanted to find a cure for it. So that spurred me on, and well, I chose to do chemistry as an undergrad because it is essential science and it is very broad. You can do so many things. You can go towards physics, geology, biology, etc. And yeah, went to uni to do an undergrad chemistry. Found out I hate organic chemistry and I really don't like biochemistry. And yeah, found my niche. I fell in love with magnetism and materials, electronic properties, and then pursued that. And towards the end of my PhD, realised that what I really wanted to do was apply my love for this little niche that I've found myself in to make a difference. I talked for a long time about working at like CERN, particle accelerators, Janine, synchrotron, or fusion. I just wanted to make a difference.
Great.
Sorry, that was quite long-winded, but that's my story.
Great, thanks, Holly. Well, you've all illustrated that actually your work has taken you across many other countries as well, that science has given you opportunities to explore and understand and learn from other research facilities and other countries and how they do things there. Now, we've only got about 8 minutes left, and I've still got loads of questions, and I'm hoping we'll still get some more questions from our live feed. Yes, I think this perhaps from Camilla is quite a good question that might summarize our talk this morning. And it's, how is your perspective on science? How has it changed since you started working in your particular field? So yeah, how has your understanding and your interest in science changed since you actually became involved in the work that you do? And I'll link it to the question about what do you see for the future of your particular industry or area of research. So how has it changed and what do you predict will happen in the future? Let me start this time with you, Janine.
Okay, I think, as I say, when I was younger and I was growing up, I was an only child and I used to investigate things on my own. But as I became more involved in science through my PhD and then when I worked in France, I realised that actually science is so vast and there is so much to learn that the best science comes from people working in teams. And I think that it really is a team effort. There is so much to learn, and there's so many different facets to the different things that we can understand and the things that we can do with our investigations. I think particularly when I worked in France, the ESRF was a European facility, and so there were people from all over Europe and all over the world there. And I think the really interesting science was done because you had people with different backgrounds who had come from different countries and different cultures, and we were all encouraged to all share our ideas. And I think that's really crucial. So I think looking to the future as well, I think that the future really is in sort of collaboration and teamwork, and people being willing to listen to other people from different backgrounds, because that's how you learn. That's something new for everyone to learn.
Great, thanks, Janine. Holly, how has your perspective changed since you've been working in the field of nuclear energy, and what do you predict for the future?
I think going into science, it's all excitement, enthusiasm. You've got so much motivation, you've got a goal, you've got so much, and you realise that a career in particularly research, it does come with kind of perceived failures, and that's something I'd never really anticipated. I would go into it thinking, I'm just going to, do this and it'll work out perfectly first time. And I realised that there's a lot of trial and error, and if you want to achieve the goal, fix the problem, it will take a lot of trial and error, and you need to be determined and stick with it.
And what about the future of the nuclear industry, Holly? What's your prediction for 2050?
Well, from my position, I would hope that we have the commercial step reactor. I would hope that we're powering at least the UK. I would hope that we're in a much better position in terms with climate change. I'd hope. Yeah, that's where I'm hoping it goes. Yeah.
So you see the nuclear industry is playing an important part in combating global warming and climate change. Yeah,
definitely. Because even recently, on the other side, nuclear fission, Rolls-Royce have been doing a lot in the UK. There are a lot of small fission plants being built. So yes, obviously, I would hope for fusion to take over, and we can talk about it if people are interested. Fusion is a lot safer for various reasons, but yeah, I think in general nuclear is the way to go.
Well, I think there's a lot for our audience there to consider and to research, particularly around the difference perhaps between nuclear fusion and nuclear fission, and the future of energy supply. Federico, what for you is the future, and how has your perspective changed since you've been working in a particular field?
So I'll bring it again to, to the curiosity, but also to diversity. I think in the course of history, most of the invention that we made come from someone that saw the same problem, the same challenge, which was there from ages, just from a different perspective. Perhaps problems from a certain field have been solved by people that had a background in a completely different field. And so this is why it's important to collaborate, to share knowledge, to always being keen to learn, always been humble enough to know that we never know enough, that there is always a better way to do things. And this is what drives me every day, and what drives when I propose an innovative solution to the client, and the client says, wow, this is something that we had never done. And I see the enthusiasm in their eyes of let's try, let's see how it works. If it works better than what we do, this is what I think is important. For the future, keep curious, I would say.
Yeah. Thanks, Federico. That's great advice from you to end with. But Rebecca, just finally, they've got a very specific question. So if you combine this with your predictions for the future, Alex wants to know about if there are ethical questions about being able to peer into a person's brain while it is still active using the MRI scanners. And then what's your predictions for the future from your industry?
So actually, I was just thinking about how relevant that question was to what we're talking about right now, because we work in a really global scientific society. As one of my experiences, I spent a few months working with Hitachi Healthcare in Japan and learning about the different technology that they use, bringing some of my experiences from using different technologies in Europe to try and help them improve their interfaces and making things more accessible to people in Europe. We're a really, really global society. And I think the lessons that we've learned from lockdown as well is that actually you can involve so many scientists from around the world. I can run an MRI scanner sitting here in my bedroom in Nottingham, and I can have a specific radiologist with a specific set of knowledge and techniques speaking to the patient or maybe getting them to do some tests, and I can look at the data here. So we're really capitalizing on the fact that this is a really global society, and ethics is a huge deal in that, and we work very closely with medical ethicists and with people who help us decide whether what we're doing is ethical. And we're always having that two-way conversation about whether what we're doing is ethical, and using that to make sure that all of the data we get is ethical and that it's true, it's verified, it definitely came from the correct patient, and that it's private and it's stored properly, and that we're making the most of that data that we get from humans as well. So ethics is a really big component of that multidisciplinary team that scientists work in.
Rebecca, that's fantastic. And thank you so much for that last comment, that it's an international world. It's a global, curiosity is global. And, you know, by collaborating, working with teams from across the world, we'll make new discoveries and learn from each other. That's a brilliant way to end this session. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank our panel, Federico, Janine, Rebecca and Holly, for joining us this morning. Thank you to our audience, and I hope you found that interesting. We're out of time, but just a reminder that coming up tomorrow, we have another Q&A session, another Ask the Scientist that involves arts and science. And we'll be talking to some researchers that are working in new materials and both across the disciplines of the arts and the sciences. So tune in tomorrow at 10 if you'd like to hear more of their work and the careers that they are developing. But for now, it's thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you and cheerio.